Okay, let's dive right into this. You're looking at highly researched, unofficial predictions for AQA GCSE Geography Paper 1 based on past paper analysis. These are going to give your revision a razor-sharp focus. But remember, they supplement, they don't replace the full syllabus. So let's hit the high probability areas. Section 1. Natural hazards. Let's go. Since last year went really heavy on tectonic hazards, we're expecting a massive pivot toward climate change and tropical storms. Examiners absolutely love testing the step-by-step formation process. It's like a giant puzzle. It all kicks off with specific ocean temperatures, which leads to warm, rising air, and eventually that condenses to form those massive cumulonimbus clouds. And listen, you need to lock this specific number into your brain right now, 27 degrees Celsius. That is the magic ocean temperature threshold required for a tropical storm to form. Literally, just dropping that exact number into your exam answer is an absolute cheat code to score marks and prove to the examiner you know your technical details. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how climate change actually interacts with these storms. We expect it to increase storm intensity and totally shift their global distribution. But, and watch out, because this is a classic trick question, it's likely not going to increase their overall frequency. So, stronger? For sure. Popping up in new places? Yes. Actually more of them? Probably not. You should also definitely expect a question on a UK weather hazard. Think of something like the 2018 Beast from the East. Look, whatever case study you choose, your revision checklist absolutely has to include three things: the underlying causes of the extreme weather, the specific impacts it had, and exactly how humans managed the response. All right, to wrap up hazards, we can't completely ignore tectonics. There's almost always a smaller question on plate boundaries. Our prediction here? The conservative plate boundary. This is where two tectonic plates slide right past each other, building up all this friction that triggers earthquakes. Think of the San Andreas Fault in America. It really hasn't popped up much in recent papers, which makes it highly likely to feature this time around. Moving right along to Section 2, the living world. The overarching prediction for this module is a heavy focus on the tropical rainforest ecosystem. Examiners are obsessed with adaptations. You need to be able to fire these off quickly: buttress roots for stability, drip-tip leaves to shed all that rainfall, and lianas climbing all the way up for sunlight. And for the animals, make sure you mention the howler monkey's strong limbs for navigating the canopy. So, the crucial point is, you really can't look at these elements in isolation. You have to understand interdependence. Basically, it's how the soil, plants, animals, climate, and humans rely on each other. They're totally linked. If one element shifts, the entire ecosystem feels the ripple effect. And speaking of humans interacting with that ecosystem, expect a question on how we're actually tackling deforestation sustainably. The spec literally highlights three major tactics you've got to know: selective logging instead of just clear cutting, forming major international agreements, and promoting ecotourism to bring in money without wrecking the habitat. For the second half of this module, it really depends on what your school covered, either hot deserts or cold environments. But the predicted format is exactly the same for both pathways. How do we manage environmental issues? So if you did deserts, be ready to explain how stone lines, tree planting, and targeted irrigation tackle desertification. And if you studied cold environments, just make sure you know the equivalent sustainable tactics for those specific regions. All right, final module, Section 3, Physical Landscapes. And this brilliantly illustrates our big prediction here. The data trend is pointing straight at landforms of deposition. If you get a rivers question, double down on floodplains, levees, and estuaries. For coasts, you need to be totally comfortable explaining spits, bars, beaches, and sand dunes. We honestly haven't seen a big marker on deposition in quite a while, so these are incredibly probable. But hey, don't just memorize the landforms themselves. You have to remember the context, like why are management schemes actually needed for these rivers or coastlines in the first place? You've got to be ready to drop in your specific case studies, like the Holderness Coast or the River Tees. Oh, and underpinning the whole shebang, you absolutely must lock down those core physical processes. We're talking specific types of erosion, mass movement, and exactly how longshore drift operates. So, that brings us to the ultimate question. Which of these predictions reveals the biggest gap in your revision right now? Seriously, don't just sit here and watch this explainer. Use it to target your weak spots today. Go patch those gaps, trust all the hard work you've put in, and good luck on paper 1.